You know, when you're young, you write music or do these things, I think, because you'd like to be famous or rich. But after becoming a Baha'i, your goals change completely. Now, I'll only write something if I think it's going to help build a beautiful world for the people of every racial background, religion, country. And with a goal like this, it makes work such a joy.
O Son of the Supreme, I have made death a messenger of joy to thee. Wherefore dost thou grieve? I made the light to shed on thee its splendour. Why dost thou veil thyself therefrom? Rejoice. To the court of holiness I summon thee. Abide therein, that thou mayest live in peace forevermore.
Breathless hush of evening that trembles on the brink of a lovely star.
During that recording we had an orchestration that someone else had written which wasn't quite up to scratch, and Russ said, look Tim, if you want I'll write another arrangement for you tonight. I've got to take Gina out for her birthday dinner, but after that I'll do it when I get home. Most orchestrators take several days to imagine how they're going to write a song. Russ took Gina out for her 70-something.
70th.
They got home at 8 p.m. and Russ sat down with his pencil and some paper and wrote this orchestration for Charlie Chaplin's song, Smile, and slid it under my door at 11 p.m. which is, for those who know how the process works, that's kind of a miracle. And my conductor, when we started conducting the first few bars, just turned to me and said, you know, what can I say, the guy's a genius.
I've never worked in my life. I write music and they give me money for it. Which I don't refuse. I studied symphonic composition all my life. Jazz was all around me, so I had to become proficient in both fields. I'm so lucky. I have a beautiful wife that helps me all the time in my career. I have my Baha'i faith, which inspires me, and I've earned my living this way. And I was so fortunate to be able to work with all of the greatest artists of my era. I did albums, 3 albums with Louis Armstrong, and I conducted for him at the Hollywood Bowl. I worked with Ella Fitzgerald albums, Sarah Vaughan, Sammy Davis Jr., Mel Torme, Anita O'Day, and jazz artists like Oscar Peterson.
It's just a thrill to be on stage and look over and see the maestro standing there conducting his four-trombone signature band. It's a thrill.
After a while, I worked with Harry James and Bob Crosby and Sam Donahue and some of the well-known bands of that era.
I remember one of the lunches I went to at Gina and Russ's, and I went off to use the bathroom. Just as I was exiting the room, I heard this voice say, "Mention my name, you'll get a good seat."
My CV goes on for pages, and I scrapped it because nobody would believe it. That's Charlie Chaplin. I scored the film Limelight with him. He wrote the main themes. He didn't write them. He played them with one finger on the piano, you know. Da 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 da, da 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 dee. That's his melody. Beautiful. But he, of course, couldn't score for a 65-piece orchestra to fit the timing and the moods of scenes. So that's where I came in.
I knew Russ Garcia for many years, and I know of the vast amount of awards and accolades he received over those years. But there's one award that he never really liked to mention, that he won an Oscar for the arranging and scoring the music for Limelight for Charlie Chaplin. Due to a mix-up, the Oscar was actually never awarded to him. It was awarded to a different Russell by mistake.
he could bring music out of people that they didn't know they had it in them. That was his gift to me. Just amazing.
Russell came to the house of worship, and he says, "Oh, we need a choir." And there were these people around, you know. He says, "Come here," and he says, "Now you sing do 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 do, and you sing dee 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 dee, and you sing ha 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 ha." And then he says, "All together now." And you know, we sounded great.
You know, I think a band or an orchestra is one of the highest forms of cooperation that mankind really knows. Everybody's got to play his individual part right, and the sum of the parts, or the whole, is greater than the sum of the parts. If we could get the countries in the world, the governments in the world, the races, the religions all to cooperate like this, we'd have that beautiful world in no time.
Unity being the part of the Baha'i faith is very, very much where Russell comes from. And basically he's a very unifying force, both in his music and as a human being. Incredible musician, incredible man. And for 95, he's got the wits of an average 70-year-old man. And you'd never guess it was 95. And the funny thing is, at rehearsal, we were there for nearly 5.5, 6 hours, and while the band was collapsing at 95, he was still standing, ready to conduct the next tune. Incredible.
Unforgettable, that's what you are.
Music was everything. To him, he'd go to a Baha'i function, if it just had music and nothing else, no consultation, no prayers, he'd be really happy. Yeah, he wanted to dominate everything with music. He was a music man, eh?
You want my gorgeous young Italian wife. She's only 80. I often worked 17-hour days, and luckily I had a good wife. I could sit there and write, and she would bring me a cup of coffee and a sandwich, and I wouldn't have to stop writing. See, I worked at Universal for 25 years. I was first call arranger there, and I did a lot of composing. I worked on at least 100 films there.
Start spreading the news. I'm leaving today. I want to be a part of New York, New York.
It's the man that he is. He's been like an uncle to me, really. I've known him almost 10 years now, which I met him when he was 87, you know, and I feel like I've known him for a good chunk of my life. And no, he's just a remarkable man. He's a very warm, funny, but he's an incredible musician. Words fail to, you know, sum him up, really, but he's just become a really good friend, and it's been great to be part of his career and to have him as part of mine, for sure.
I was the busiest arranger in Hollywood for many, many, many years, because I was composing and arranging for the film studios also. At Universal, they gave me an office there I could use, and I did many films and many TV series. And I worked MGM, or if Universal wasn't busy for a couple of weeks, I could work Disney or Fox or whatever studio needed somebody. They would feel that I'm worth more than I believe I'm worth.
He's just puts things together you know, he's always got a smile on his face. I don't think he even yells at people like I do, you know, with choirs. He's just easygoing, and now, I mean, his reputation was all true, and everything I'd heard about him was wonderful, you know.
I walked into Verve Records because the owner I heard was in town. I had an idea for a CD, and I started to talk to him. He said, "I'd like you to run my company, Verve Records." And we had all the great artists signed, you know, the jazz field especially. He wanted me to be A&R, which is artist and repertoire. You hire the artists, you make the contracts with their agents, you plan all recording sessions, you supervise the sessions, you supervise to see that the artwork is right and the liner notes are correct. And he said, you can still do some of your outside work if you get a film or whatever. In fact, I did the Time Machine film, composed that for George Pal while I was doing this job at Verve.